Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. Some of you might remember, most of you probably remember, that a couple of months ago there was a lot of news about this oil rig that Shell Oil Company sent up to the Arctic to explore for drilling for oil there. Now, here's what happened. It broke away. It was being towed back to Seattle, I believe is where it was going, in rough seas and bad weather. And it broke away from its the tugboat that was towing with it. The cable snapped. It broke away. They couldn't reattach the cable. It drifted around and finally ran aground on one of the islands in the Aleutian Island chain. The reason why it was being towed back when it was because if they had left it up there longer, since it was in Alaskan territory, they would have owed some taxes to the state of Alaska. And they didn't want to pay any extra money to Alaska. So, in order to save money, they risked damaging the environment up in the Arctic waters up there. That's what they did. Now, there was another oil rig that was sent up there. And this oil rig was in such bad shape, it got towed back and it reached the port it was supposed to reach. But when it was inspected by government inspectors, it had a whole bunch of violations. So much, it was in such bad shape that the inspectors referred it to the Justice Department for a criminal investigation. Well, Shell, they got their lawyers all together and they thwarted that, and now both of those rigs are on their way to Asia for repairs. So I don't know if a criminal investigation is going to get anywhere. But the fact is that the oil companies in both cases, as soon as they sign their contracts with the U.S. government, the contract states that they have to do everything they can to protect the environment. But as soon as they signed that contract, they started cutting corners. As soon as they signed that contract, they started risking the environment. And this is not an anomaly. This is the way the oil companies work. Every time there's an oil spill, when they investigate, they find that corners were cut, redundant systems were not in place, all the things that are required for the oil companies to do, they don't bother to do them because they cost a little extra money. Well, here's the deal. Now, the oil companies want to run a pipeline from Canada to Texas. And they want to pump the oil from the Canadian oil sands down to Texas. Now, the politicians and the oil company executives are lying their ass off, and they say that this will be great for America because it will reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Well, that's bullshit. The only reason that they want that pipeline to run all the way from Canada to Texas is so that it can be refined in the Gulf and exported to Asia, Europe, other countries. It's not about the United States. If they wanted to sell oil to the United States, they could build a refinery right by the oil sands in Canada and truck it in. Now, here's the problem with that oil pipeline. It runs over the Ogallala aquifer. The Ogallala aquifer is our biggest water table in the United States. It runs all the way from almost to the Canadian border to Texas. The states it runs through are South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. It provides 30% of our irrigation to farmland in the United States. It supplies drinking water to 82% of the people who live in what's called the High Plains area. In Texas, it supplies 40% of the water for San Antonio and Dallas. All it would take would be one oil spill on that pipeline, and we would lose the Ogallala Aquifer. That would mean that 82% of the people in the High Plains area would have no drinking water. Farms wouldn't be able to irrigate. The price of food would skyrocket. And the High Plains area would become a dust bowl again. And do you think that the oil companies are going to take care of that? I guarantee you that if they build that pipeline, there will be an oil spill, we'll lose the aquifer, and the United States will be incredibly damaged. We've seen how the oil companies operate. They're always cutting corners. Are we going to trust our water to the oil companies so that they can sell their oil overseas and make huge profits? That's the question about the Keystone XL pipeline. It's not about the United States. It's simply about the profits of oil companies and us risking our water supply. Thanks for listening.